The dupification of beauty continues, okay? I said that word in a video recently as kind of a joke, but I'm starting to think maybe it's not a joke anymore because every single new release at the drugstore these days seems to be a dupe of something else, and that is what I have today. We've got a pile of dupes in front of me. We'll see which ones are actually good and maybe which ones are not. But with the rise in dupes, we have seen the rise in price point. I'm shocked to say that the foundation we're applying today from the drugstore is $22. What is going on, okay? So we're gonna try this. We'll see if it's worth the $22. Let's jump in. So the first product to try is one that's not fully brand new to me. I have used this a few times, so I can share some thoughts already. It's the new Catrice Soft Glam Filter Fluid. So this is, of course, their answer to the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter, or even the e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter. I actually shared a short and a reel and a TikTok. I shared it on all three, comparing these two, and it almost feels like the Catrice is a more affordable dupe of the e.l.f. because they're pretty identical products, but the e.l.f. retails for $14 and Catrice comes in at $10. So I'm gonna apply this actually just to half of my face so we can have somewhat of a control group while we do the foundation as well, but I'm wearing the shade 20, which as you'll see is a little bit too deep for me. I am much better matched to, I believe it's shade 10, but I originally tried 20 because that's the shade I have in e.l.f. and I wanted to do the comparison. The big difference between these two products, the undertones. If you have run into the e.l.f. ones pulling super yellow, I find that the Catrice undertones are much more neutral. And as you probably saw in the comparison video, the two products sit very similarly on the skin. I would say the main difference is that the e.l.f. version has a little bit more coverage than the Catrice version, and therefore I could see myself wearing the e.l.f. more as like a glowy skin tint type of look, but I kind of think of the Catrice more as this prep step or something I would put underneath. And the sheerness is pretty evident, especially considering that that shade was not my best match, but it's still really seamlessly blended into the skin because it's very, very low pigment. Here is the comparison. We have the side with, I think it has a really subtle amount of glow to it. And here is the side without, definitely a little bit more matte, but the difference is not too significant. So if you wanted to apply this and not get the coverage, I think this looks really beautiful on its own as a very, very subtle look, but you can build this up a bit. And I've probably used this, I wanna say 4 times now. And it's quite similar to the e.l.f. and it's quite similar to the Charlotte Tilbury as well. It really feels like every single brand has a version of this type of product at this point. But that being said, the Catrice version is one of the least expensive ones. Now, I'm saying this is new because I live in the US, so this is new to us, but I think they got this in Europe last year. Okay, but here we go. I'm looking nice and glowy, and I'm so intrigued, and I'm not gonna lie, nervous to try this from CoverGirl. So this is their new Simply Ageless Skin Perfector Essence. This is supposed to dupe a Chanel foundation. You know, I don't use Chanel, so I can't really speak to the similarities between the two, but I will let you know if I like this or not. I know Rose Inc. also has a similar style of product, and I feel like this type of foundation primer situation is on the rise, where you've got the tiny little micro beads in here, and then they're supposed to burst. So what I've heard about this is that you almost want to kind of try to like burst the beads beforehand. And I had a friend tell me like she puts it on the back of her hand and then kind of tries to like break it down. Cause yeah, the weirdest thing is happening. Oh gosh, I'm getting it on my pants. I'm not gonna lie, it looks disgusting. You look at this and it looks like the foundation has gone bad and completely separated. Like I look at this, I'm like, I don't want to put that on my skin, but the magic is supposed to happen, apparently. You're supposed to just keep blending. Oh my gosh, this looks bad, okay? But okay, that's what she told me to do. She was like, start to blend it on your hand and then do a little bit more when you get to the face. So that's what I'm gonna do. Oh my gosh, I'm like, it's like so watery that I feel like it's flicking the product onto my pants. I am wearing pajamas on my lower half because that's the YouTube uniform. So my pajamas now have foundation stains all over them. So I'm starting by applying it to the side of my face that I did not apply the primer, just so we can kind of see the side by side and determine what glow is naturally coming from the foundation and what's really influenced by that primer. I think this shade, no, I was gonna say it looks too light, but that's probably because this side of my face is a little bronzed up from that other product. This actually probably matches my neck pretty well. I have the shade 20, and this product, as I said, retails for $21.49, which is really wild to think about because the prices at the drugstore have exploded so much that brands that I previously thought of as mid-range brands that I would not have categorized as a drugstore price point now are like the same prices. Okay, for example, the brand About Face also just launched a foundation, and I don't consider About Face a drugstore brand, but that foundation is $22, essentially the exact same price as this one from CoverGirl. And it's like, yeah, this one is a fraction of the price of the $70 Chanel foundation it's trying to dupe, but man, what happened to the drugstore? Okay, though, wait, as I'm roasting this product for its price point, it looks really nice on my skin. This looks really, really nice. And, okay, wait, maybe not as much on my nose, but this is supposed to be a multi-use product. And I'm actually gonna swap over to a sponge and just push it in a little bit more. But CoverGirl describes this as a primer. So I think that's probably the intended use. They say to kind of start with that and do foundation over top, but I've seen most people wear this as a foundation, and I think it's looking beautiful as a foundation. That's probably how I would mostly wear it. And if you're using it for that method, you're gonna get this much lighter, very like sheer, somewhat buildable, actually probably not that buildable, but pretty sheer level of coverage. Okay, bad news, it is clinging really weird around my nose. Even with that very sheer level of coverage though, I don't think I'm seeing the Catrice peek through as much as I would like for it to. And let me know if you are. Remember, this is the side with the Catrice, this is the side without. Does one side look more radiant than the other? Because at first I thought they did, but the more I look, I don't think the difference is super noticeable. I do almost feel like this side looks a little more concealed, probably because I have those two layers of product there. So it's almost translating as a little bit more coverage, but aside from that, the difference is really minimal in my opinion. Sticking with the drugstore theme, I'm gonna go ahead and use my Flower Get Real Serum Concealer. And then probably the most underrated cream bronzer at the drugstore is this one from LA Girl. This is their Velvet Bronzer. It's this really unique product because the pigment is so low. Like when I swatched it there, you almost don't see a swatch. And it's a really glowy product too. Like you see it and it has almost like some shimmer to it, but on the skin it just translates as a blush bronzer highlight hybrid. I feel like this is my all-in-one product when I'm having days where I just need to run out the door and put something on, but I don't want to go through a lot of steps. I'm always choosing this because I feel like it gives me the effect of all three. But I just want to do a little bit of bronzer before we jump into the blush, even though I know I just said this kind of acts like a blush. But I have been wanting to try the new blushes from r.e.m, so we're going to include this today. And I know you're like, girl, that's not drugstore, and it's not. But ironically, the blush is less expensive than the foundation. Can you believe that? This retails for $20. It is $1.49 less than this CoverGirl foundation. And it's just so interesting how much the lines have blurred in price point. And I talked a bit about this even from a different perspective in my luxury makeup video that I just posted in my makeup musing series, but it is so fascinating to observe that these more mid-tier brands are now having products that almost feel like drugstore prices. Like they're the same price point as things you buy at the drugstore. Maybe I need to film like a short or something with some of my favorite drugstore products that are actually still under like $5 or $6 because they're harder to find, but they definitely still exist. So let me know if you want to see some type of video about that, and let me know what yours are. Let me know if there's anything I'm missing that's still actually a drugstore price point that I should try. Do you see what I mean about this like hybrid though? It looks so glowy and radiant, but not too glowy. It doesn't look like a highlighter. The skin is just so alive. This is probably the shade I've been hearing the most about. It's called Pinking of You. And when I see this, it looks super similar to Persona Bubble, which you know was my obsession for a long time there. But here they are side by side for reference. They're incredibly similar, but you can see that Bubble almost has a little bit more purple to it, almost has more blue in the undertone. So I would almost think, and we'll see on the skin, but I envision Pinking of You to be even better suited to someone that has a warm skin tone. If you found that this just was not flattering on your skin tone because it's a little too cool toned, this could be a better version of that bubblegum pink that has a little bit more warmth to it. Maybe though. We'll see how the formula is. Let's find out. I don't want to pick up too much. We'll see how pigmented this is. I've made that mistake before. Okay, I'm just gonna tap. Okay, not too pigmented. I feel like we can build this up at a good pace. Pretty. I mean, as you can see, it's building kind of slowly. It's very, very subtle at the moment, but I personally enjoy that quality in a formula. I like a blush that I can build up at my own pace, but I know not everyone does, so I like to point that out. Also, I like the packaging. This has, I believe, a magnet in here. Feels like there's a magnet pulling it shut. It closes in a very satisfying way. This is still plastic like most products from r.e.m, but I do enjoy the packaging. Okay, this is really pretty. It still is translating as that like somewhat cool tone bubblegummy pink, but maybe not as much as Persona. I can share a swatch of both just to kind of give you the comparison, since I know that's a really popular bubblegum pink. Okay, it's looking nice. I want to kind of like fade it out in this area, so I'm just going to tap over it a bit with the same sponge I did my foundation with, and then in a minute I'm going to add some powder to really diffuse everything into one another. To stick with that drugstore theme, I'm taking the e.l.f. Halo Glow powder, but I have the shade Light Pink, which is not a full-on pink powder, but it does have that really subtle pink undertone to it, and I think it really seamlessly fades into pink blush. You know what's so funny? I was really, really obsessed with this shade of blush for a while there, and I know many of us were and still are, but I'm now noticing, now that I've gotten even more into peaches and nude blushes, when I go back to wearing the pink like this, I see it on my skin and I'm like, it's not your best shade, girl. But that being said, I still think there are ways to make colors that aren't necessarily ideal for your undertone. You can still usually make them work through the other steps on the face, the other things you're wearing it with, but this I'm like, maybe the pink wasn't doing me as many favors as I thought. I don't think it's as harmonious with my complexion as more of a peach shade. I also think what's throwing it off is my very warm brown top. I think if I was in a more cool toned shirt, it would be a different story. They do have a few other shades in the line as well, though. I said a few. They have a lot of shades, so I need to try some others, but I was really curious about the pink just because I feel like I've been seeing everybody talking about it and everybody really excited about it. Okay, update on the foundation with powder over top. Looks really beautiful and smooth. The nose is still doing the same kind of weird thing, but I will say that tends to be the area that a foundation's gonna run into some trouble. So it's definitely not just the CoverGirl one, but I feel like I want to be very, very picky considering it is $22. It really is just so interesting to see all these drugstore prices rise so fast, especially even a brand like e.l.f. that used to have only $1 makeup. And I know that wasn't so recently, but it's almost giving me whiplash how fast these prices have gone up at the drugstore. Obviously, inflation is happening everywhere, but these recent drugstore launches have me like my jaw's on the floor when I'm reading about them on Trendmood. I'm like, $14 for a lip stain? We're gonna test this one out pretty soon here, but I'm just like, what is going on? You know what? When I get to this step in my makeup, I don't have anything new to apply on the eyes, but I was like, okay, we have to do eyeshadow, mascara, and everything because you can't not have an eye. But I'm trying to like break myself of that habit and remind myself that like, girl, no, you could do a full face of makeup. You don't have to apply eye makeup at the same time. Sometimes it feels like there are these unwritten rules with makeup where if you're doing a full base, you also have to do a look on the eyes, and like you really don't. Sometimes I like the look of like a full face with a really subtle eye. So you know what? we're going to skip the eye because I have a couple new lip products we're going to try out. So I have the NYX Fat Lip Oil and all of its many similar products that I want to compare it to. So I'm pretty sure this was intended to dupe the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lip Oil, but it's also really similar in theory. I haven't tried it yet, but it's also really similar to the Hourglass ones. And then, of course, the Flower Beauty ones that launched last year, I believe. I have not picked up the e.l.f. ones yet, but I will. Don't worry, I will. And then we'll have to do some sort of a showdown, like all these click-up lip pens that have exploded lately, which one is the best? So to speak about the dupeability here, okay, here I am just making up words left and right, but the Flower Beauty one, I did not find to be a dupe at all, really, to the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lip Shift. The Flower Beauty one is much more sheer in formula, whereas the Tarte one is kind of thick and very opaque. I actually thought the Flower Beauty was a lot closer to the Hourglass. I think this is like, it's dupe-ish. It's dupe-ish, but it's not a full-on dupe. But let's see where the NYX lines up. So I think we need to start with swatches here. We'll start off swatching the Tarte. I have this in the shade Peachy Beige, and luckily I have all four of these in a really similar shade, so we'll get a good comparison there. But this, very thick. I always found the Tarte ones a little globby in my opinion, so I don't like that. Next up is Hourglass in Mist. Now Hourglass is the only one with a twist. Everything else is a click, but Hourglass is also the most expensive. This one is $36 versus $24 from Tarte, and it's very similar but slightly less opaque in my opinion than the version from Tarte. Flower Beauty I've got in the shade Toasty, and this one is the most sheer out of all of them and a little bit less glossy than the others, but it's still shiny. Like there's a difference. It doesn't have the thickness of like the Tarte that provides it that glossy look, but it's shiny in a reflective way. And that will finally bring us to NYX. I've only swatched this in Ulta, not in person yet, and this is in the shade Link in My Bio, which I hate as a shade name, but here we go. My first thoughts are it looks almost as sheer as the Flower Beauty one, but a little bit thicker, you know? So it's reminding me already more of the Hourglass than the Tarte, but we're gonna see how this wears on the lips. Fighting the urge to apply a lip liner here, even though I really want to. That way we can see the true color. Okay, right off the bat, I like this more than the Tarte, but that's not saying much because I have not historically enjoyed the ones from Tarte. This feels much more comfortable on the lips. The Tarte one was like this thick, sticky, globby mess to me. This feels somewhat similar, again, to the Hourglass. I'm already thinking this is gonna be a closer product to this than it is the Tarte Maracuja ones. This looks pretty, but keep in mind it doesn't have that same high level of pigment. Personally, that's not a downside to me, but if you were looking for high opacity, this still has somewhat of a level of like sheerness to it. So I like the way this looks. I think I would love it even more with a lip liner, but we want to get the full effect. It was very easy to apply too. I feel like it's really error proof because it isn't so thick or so pigmented. It really just glides on effortlessly. But now let me make sure my lips are clean and dry, because you definitely want dry lips for this, but we're gonna use this lip stain from Milani. I have used this twice now, so I have some thoughts, so I'm excited to share them with you today. And my immediate thought with this was, wait a minute, this is really similar to my Holy Grail lip stain from Kaja, which, Sephora, please don't do this to me. I think they're discontinuing it, or just, I don't know if the brand is discontinuing it or it's leaving Sephora, but there are less shades available, and the ones that are available are like out of stock, so they're actually not available. But Kaja's lip stain retails for $25 and Milani's retails for $14, so $11 less. Not the biggest savings, but I'll take it. And I don't think these were maybe necessarily intended to be dupes, but man, they're similar, especially in the shades available. And what I really like about the Milani, it comes to a very precise point with the doe foot, so you can apply this as a lip liner, and that's how I've worn it. Do you know the peel off lip liner that went super viral that I actually didn't like? In my eyes, this is a better version of that because you have the precision to apply it if you want to create a lip liner stain, but it is just way less effort and much easier to apply. So when I wore this as a liner stain the other day, I kind of did this and then took my finger and tapped it out to get a little bit more of a blurred look. And if you're into the more blurred lip line look, which I am, I know not everyone is, some people like a very crisp, sharp look, which is valid as well, but if you like this more kind of messy, blurred look, this product is really great to achieve it. Okay, I had like a dry patch here where I do feel like it clung to it a little bit. That is typically the case with any lip stain. They are all gonna do that. Some worse than others, but I still feel like this looks nice. You could kind of stop here and let this be your base and just apply like a gloss over top. But I wanna go ahead and apply this all over the lips so we can get that look as well. The product applies in the most satisfying way. It is like velvet. It is so smooth. Okay, so you could just keep this as is and wear it like this. It just looks like a deep red glossy lip. It's beautiful. But for the sake of seeing the stain that gets left behind, I am gonna like tap it away. Okay. Here's the final stain, definitely a slightly different color. Let's take a little bit of the NYX on top. Okay, I feel like those look really pretty together. Overall, I feel like it was mostly winners today, but I will of course get back to you with final thoughts in the future. But thank you so much for watching, and I will go ahead and see you in my next one. Bye.